Alright, we're going to continue to solve one-step equations in this video, but we're going to move into the, hold on to your seats, the dreaded fractions, right? Now, in order to move into this feared topic, for many people it's feared, I just want to review a few things with you. And that is, what do I do when I'm combining fractions and the signs are the same? Now, notice this is just adding, subtracting. We're not into multiplying and dividing, right? I'll show you that later. Well, I add the fractions. When the signs are the same, I add the fractions. Here the signs are positive, both of them. Here the signs are negative, both of them. But I'm still going to add. Okay, so let's go ahead and write them. It doesn't matter which is large or small. I just write them. And I always write vertically because I like to do the old school common denominator out to the side. So my LCD, least common denominator, is 6. How do I find that? Well, I skip count 3 and 6. I look at the bottom numbers, skip count those, and which is whatever is the first number they land on is my least common denominator. All right. So I know that 3 was multiplied by 2, therefore I multiply the 1 by 2. And then this one, 6, was not multiplied by anything, or if it was a 5. Excuse me, it was a 1, therefore I'm going to multiply 5 by 1. Alright, I know I'm adding, so I'm going to have 7/6. Now, that is simplified. Simplified means that no common number can divide into the top and the bottom. Well, you go, but it's top heavy. Well, that's fine, but it's still simplified. So don't confuse simplifying with writing it as a mixed number. So that's right there, a mixed number. Both of them are simplified to lowest terms, okay? All right, let's take a look at this one. I'm going to put the 5/8 above. I forget about the signs. I know my answer is going to be negative, right? I know my answer is going to be negative. So I'm not worried about that. Why? Because, well, think about the number line issue, right? Okay, my LCD, in this case, again, is 24. I think we had one of these before. 24. All right, times 2 times 2, times 3 times 3. Here we go. We're adding, so that's going to be 17/24. Now, is this in simplest form? Well, let's see. Can anything divide the top and bottom so that it's smaller? No, it's simplest form. Can I write it as a mixed number? No, because it's not top heavy. All right, so there's just a little review. Now, what about when the signs are different and we're combining fractions? Well, I have 3 easy steps that I think will help. First thing is ask which fraction is larger. Now, I mean to say when we disregard the sign of the number, when we disregard it. For instance, I have a 1/3 and I have a negative 3/6. Well, you might say, well, Miss Savelle, that 3/6 is really just a half. So, okay, fine. Then rewrite it. But we still have to know which one's larger. Well, 1/2 is larger than 1/3, and I'm disregarding the negative, right? Just forget about that. So, step 2, put the larger fraction on the top. So here I go. The larger fraction is a half, and then I'm supposed to subtract. So here we go. Now, again, I'm putting it vertically. A little bit of old school here. I hope that it's not too old because I think it's really one of the best ways to subtract. Hope it hasn't been thrown out completely. Alright, so my answer is 1/6. Now, the third step is the answer gets the sign of the larger fraction. Again, disregarding the SIGN, the sign. So which one was the larger one? Well, this one was larger. What was it? Negative, and therefore my sign is negative. Why is that? Always ask why. Well, think about the number line video you watched a few videos ago, if you did. If you didn't, go back and watch it. I have 1/3, let's call that 1/3. I'm going to combine it with negative 1/2. Well, negative 1/2 is larger. So I'm already into the negative department, so my answer should be negative. Okay? All right, let's go on to the next one. All right, let's do this again. Which fraction's larger? 3/8 or 1/12? Well, of course 3/8 is larger. Let's put it on the top. Okay, so put it on the top and subtract. So I'm going to get a common denominator. There we go. I think I'm going to make that a different color. I think it helps to see it in a different color. Alright, so there's times 2, and this is times 3, times 3. Alright, 7/24. Okay, so because we were subtracting, right? I've already written that. So is that in simplest form? Indeed it is. Now, the sign, the answer gets the sign of the larger. So let's go back to what we thought was larger. Well, the 3/8 was definitely larger, and look, it was negative. So we're going to have a negative. Alright, very good. Let's move on. And now we're going to actually get into solving equations, but we had to have that foundation, right? So we're going to take a look at inverse operations using adding and subtracting. Again, we're going to try to get a 0 next to the letter. If it's adding and subtracting, we work toward getting a 0. All right. So we have an example here. I want to work it with you. So I have 2/3 plus x is equal to 1/2. Okay. Sorry, I'm going to have to start over because I had to answer the phone. Okay, so we have 2/3 plus x is equal to 1/2, and we want this to read 0 plus x is equal to whatever. Doesn't matter what it's equal to, because that's why we're solving the equation, so that we can find out what x is. So we create a 0 next to the x in the same way we did it in the last set of equations. So if 2/3 is being added to x, then I'm going to subtract 2/3, and that's going to give me a 0 on the left side that's being added to the x. So this right side means 1/2 minus 2/3, right? If I just take it from a vertical position and I just write it horizontally, then I know that it means 1/2 minus 2/3. Now I'm going to fix the subtraction, and that means 1/2 plus negative 2/3. Then I do the 3 steps. I go through the 3 steps. Here are 2 fractions with different signs being combined with a plus, right? And therefore I'm going to subtract the numbers. Step 1, which is larger, put it on top, is step 2, and subtract. That's step 2, right? And then, once we get our answer, the sign is the one of the larger fraction. That's step 3. Okay? Now, I'm going to go ahead and move on. You can do that one on your own later if you want. Let's move on and do another problem. Here we go. I'm going to solve the equation. So the directions that I should have written, but I'm implying, are to solve. So I'm going to subtract 5/8 from both sides. Okay? So x equals. That accomplished my goal of getting a 0. Okay, so that's the same as 0 plus x, which is just x. Here we go. The right side, right? The right side just is 5 2/3 minus 5/8. Well, obviously, the 5 2/3 is the larger, so I'm going to put it on top. Nope, maybe I should do this first. Plus negative, right? I see that the signs are opposite, so I'm going to subtract. Now, when you're working with a whole number on the fractions, we saw in the videos closer to the beginning of the playlist, I have to write the 5 over here because there's an equals, right? If I don't put the 5, it's really not equal. So the details matter, right? All right, let's get a common denominator. Least common denominator for this one is 8 times 3, I think 24. Okay, so here we go. 8 was multiplied by 3, so that's 15. 3 was multiplied by 8, so 2 times 8 is 16. All right, so I have 16 24ths, take away 15 24ths is 1 24th. I have 5 take away nothing is 5. So I have 5 and 1 24th. Now, the third step, remember, which one was the larger? Was that one. And the larger one was positive, therefore my answer is positive. And I'm finished. Now see, that wasn't difficult. It wasn't scary at all. Okay, let's do a few more. Alright, I'm just going to do 4 more and we'll call it a day. So I'm going to subtract an eighth, subtract an eighth. This means x is, now, this is 5/6, take away an eighth. That means 5/6 plus negative 1/8. That means that I need to do the 3 steps. A positive plus a negative, I'm going to subtract. Which is larger? Well, 5/6 is larger. I'm going to come over here to the left. 5/6 goes on top, minus an eighth. Now I'm going to write equivalent fractions. Common denominator, 6 times 8 is 48, but 24 is smaller. We're going to use 24. Okay, 8 times 3. 6 times 4. I get subtracting, I get 17/24. Now bring it back over, 17/24. Now the third step is which one was the larger one. There it is right there. It was positive, right? Positive. So my answer is positive. And there's my answer. X is 17/24. Okay, I'm going to ask you to pause the video. You try the next 3 and let's see how it goes. Go ahead and pause it. Okay, here are your answers. Oops, I forgot to highlight that one for you. We'll do that in pink. There are the 4 answers. I hope you were successful. Now remember, on number 4, I didn't have to stack them on top of each other. There was no subtraction involved. I just had to add a whole number 3 to a fraction 3/8, 3 3/8. All right, thanks for watching.